Alright, so welcome to tonight's session on building sector management. What we're going to do tonight is just briefly go through assignment number 1, the feedback that I want to give you guys, and also a few hints on how to answer the questions in assignment number 2. Alright, so nothing too serious, no new work that we're going to do tonight. If you have any questions at any time, just put up your hand and we'll go through it. Alright, so basically the free marks, there's a section in each of the assignments. If ever you do any other courses with me, you'll see this is a general thing that's always there. There's always a few free marks that you can just pick up by making sure that you follow a normal style profile or something like that. So what I'm after is just a normal cover page, and this isn't the cover page with the barcode. You don't need to have the barcode one in there. What I typically want is one with at least the assignment name on it, and of course the course name and number. See if you can centralize it nicely in the middle of the page, make it look nice, a formal type of report. Many of you guys have the sort of the heading right in the corner on the top left hand side. It kind of looks silly, so on the first page, see if you can get it in the middle of the page, sort of 2/3 down the page, and centralize it. Right, the other thing that many people slipped up on is page number. If you need to have page numbers on each and every page, you can skip the front page, but it's really simple, just insert page numbers. Alright, so if you don't have page numbers, I'll deduct some marks. The general presentation of the assessment item, really important. Try and get a consistent font throughout the document. Many of you have different fonts, and the moment I see a different font, I start digging further, because it starts looking to me, like you might have copied and pasted from somewhere, and obviously we don't want that. So always try and get the fonts at least consistent. This is a professional report that you're going to submit, so that's also money for nothing there. I like the text margins to be justified. It gives it a nice professional feel, so you'll see all the documents that you've got. For instance, the course profile and the assessment write-ups, all of those have the text margins nicely justified. Alright, so all of that stuff in there. Alright, really important is the table of contents, or if you have lots and lots of figures, a table of figures, or a table of tables and figures. Alright, so Microsoft Word and all of the other packages that you use have standard functionality that you can use, and I suggest you use it. Many of you just use a table. It sort of works, it doesn't look as good, and in assessment number 2, if it's not in a nice format, you'll lose some marks over there. Right, then the one that's really important, the references. This is worth 10% of the assessment. Make sure that you follow the Harvard technique. Whenever you reference, make sure that it's the author year, and if you're going to use in-text referencing, make sure that you also use the right format over there. Right, there's some free software that you can pick up from the university website, and I suggest you have a look in the Moodle site for this course, or even the course profile. Alright, so Ben, you've got a question.
Yeah, just regarding referencing, what's the preferred method when we're referencing for websites and things like that? It can be a bit tricky finding the information that's all required sometimes.
Alright,
Is
so
there
that well, if you look at the Harvard method, there's a fine way, or there's a defined way of listing a reference for a website. It's basically the web address, the author of the address, or the author of the web page, when you accessed it, and when last it was updated. So as long as you've got that information, let's say for instance you're going to find an article on the Australian's website, then it would be www.australian.com.au, and you would say author, the editor's name of the website, and that's typically, you can find that information on the website. And then I accessed it on the 23rd of December at 9:15, and it was last updated on the 22nd of December, and typically that information you'll get there. Right, if you can't find that information, web address, when you accessed it, that's the bare minimum for each of those. Now, important, you should not have thousands and thousands of websites that you are referencing. For a typical report, I would expect to see not more than 50% of the references being websites. All right, and the further we go with our study, the fewer websites we're going to see, and the more articles I would like you guys to reference. All right, so you can obviously also go onto the library website and get the information there, see if you can find articles. A good source of articles specifically in relation to question number 2 would be to start with Google Scholar. Right, and Google Scholar will point you in the right direction and give you the access to those articles. If you can't access it, many times you'll see that you'll just have to log on to the university website, go through the library, and then find the article over there. All right, that's the way to find it outside. All right. Yes,
Thanks for
Ben.
that.
All right. Yeah, that's quite an important one, and it sort of irks, because I'm sure you guys also want to see, yourselves develop, and when you later on do your PhDs and stuff, I'm sure you're going to want to get the formatting and everything right. As I say, there's free software that you can go download. It's called EndNote, and EndNote will help you do all your referencing. So just go onto the course profile or the website, the Moodle site. I've given you guys a link there and a little bit of a write-up on EndNote. So it's free of charge for all students. Just go and grab it. All right. All right. So as I say, that's a good 20% of the assessment item for free. Basically, just by doing a nice cover page, getting page numbers, all of that stuff right. All right. So for question number 1 in assignment number 1, we spoke about the carbon tax, and I had some really interesting submissions, and I had some less interesting submissions, and then I had a few funnies. But what I wanted basically, and this you can sort of always take through your study, is always try and introduce the topic. All right, you'll see for your benefit, assessment item number 2, the marking scheme is already out there. So you'll see what I want, and always try and introduce it. Look at why it's there. Look at the history, which other countries are doing it. Maybe try and find out why we have this new scheme in place, and what is it that we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. Alright, so that would give you about 15 points out of the total there, and quite a few of you guys got between 10 and 15 for that. If you got less than 10, it meant that you missed something, and I tried to be as detailed as possible in the feedback that I gave. So just have a look at it, and if you need some more feedback, you're welcome to just ask for it. The second part of the question that I wanted you to focus on is basically just a short and brief introduction to the components of the build. This is what we have, and this is what we're going to see. And typically for this section, if you had a 2-line, 3-line type intro for each of the components, that would be great. And you'll see that effectively you only need about 6 of the 18 in total, because they can be grouped together, all right, making the introductory note that you're going to write a lot easier and a lot shorter to do. All right, and the reason why I want this is so that it can set the context for the next part of the question and see what the rest of the bill is trying to do. All right, and this is the third part, is where most people lost a lot of marks, and that is the basic question that the assessment tried to achieve, and it's which components will have the greatest impact, not only on the industry but in the discipline areas. So that would be construction management, building design, building surveying, quantity surveying, any of those disciplines that we have in the industry, and we need to try and find out what's the influence going to be. Now, that's not an easy question to answer, because we don't deal with carbon, but because we're a downstream activity, some of those costs might get passed on. Specifically looking at logistics and stuff. So construction managers, they would typically focus a little bit more on the logistics and what happens on site and the cost of concrete and cement, for instance. And a lot of you guys picked up correctly that it's between $6,000 and $8,000 difference on a normal 3-bedroom house. That's the effect going to be. Right, I also made note of quite a number of you used the Davis-Langdon report. I'm not too fond of that report, and I mentioned it previously on. So if you used it, I always asked for another report to just back it up. Right, the Davis-Langdon report was written really early on, and well, not early on, but it's sort of a really one-sided report, not being objective. So that's why I wanted some more information there. Alright, and then the last part, and this is maybe a good advice for assessment item number 2, your opinion and conclusion. Now typically the conclusion is always the last little thing that you do about between 11:30 at night and 10 to 12 just before you submit it electronically. But try and pull this apart a little bit. Give me your personal opinion, long-term, short-term goals, that type of thing. So for assessment item number 2, I'm also going to try and see what your opinion is on the issue at hand, and see how your experience has influenced your decisions and your decision-making process. Alright, so a few statistics for assessment item number 1. This is the very first time in my life that I have 30 out of 30 submissions. So I've never had this before, so it's really some kind of achievement for the class. So congratulations to you guys all for submitting assessment items. Only 3 of those were late, 27 were on time, so that's just amazing. So thanks for that effort. The average word count was less than the target, but it's fine. I have to read all of those words, so that's why it took a little bit longer. I sort of had a target set for 5 o'clock that afternoon, and I missed it by about 2 hours, but at least it's out there, so not bad at all. The average, if you had more than 18, you're above average, and that would be a really good score. The highest out of 30 was 25, and the lowest was 6. Alright, so all in all, not really a bad score for the class. So I think we're in pretty good shape for assessment item number 2. We can quickly knock it out of the way and then go on holiday. Alright, so that's what I wanted to say about assessment item number 1. Has anybody got any questions about assessment item number 1?
Yeah, just with the word count, are you too concerned if we go a little bit over or a little bit under? What's your preference?
I really don't have any preference there. If you get to about, say, let's say I said 3,000 and you get to about 2,000 words, I would pick that up, because typically in 2,000 words you're not going to get the depth that I want. Let's say you submit 4,000 words, I'm still going to read it, and in many cases I don't even realize that you've exceeded the word count. So don't worry about going over too much, worry about going under. Alright, so quite a few students submitted words or submitted submissions of less than 1,500, and obviously those are the ones that did not really get through that well, because they just could not reach the depth of the discussion that we need in these.
Sure. Thanks, sir.
Alright, so let's move on to assignment number 2, and just make sure that you have the correct due date for that. That's this Monday at 5 minutes to 12. So please make sure that you submit it then. The marking sheet is already available. I put that up in the news forum, so you can go and have a look at it. It's a basic Excel spreadsheet, just typing, just giving you some information on what I'm after. Alright, so remember what I said about the general section. That's always there. That's money for nothing. You should all get between 15 out of 20 and 20 out of 20 for that section, depending on the number of references that you have and how well you reference. That's the only influence that should actually have an influence on your marks. All right, you shouldn't lose points for formatting, you shouldn't lose points for spelling, and that type of thing. If you do lose points for that, that's yeah, unfortunate, and it's to be avoided. All right, so for both of these questions, the first thing that you want to do is do an introduction. So in the introduction, you're going to define. So if we look at define, so if we look at question number 1, I say examine and prepare a report on the trend in the construction sector. All right, so and then I go on and I say specific focus should be made towards gross value added. All right, so go and find a nice definition for gross value added in terms of our industry, and make sure that you put that in there in your own words so that I can understand or see that you know what you're talking about. A little bit about defining the people that's employed. So typically I'll say, right, employed means that it's a full-time employee, part-time employee. These are the qualifications to be seen as an employed person. Alright, so you might have to go and have a look at the Australian Taxation Office website, the ATO, for those definitions. So you might have to think a bit broader than just the normal to get to those answers. Alright, a good place then to start the analysis and interpretation of that question would be to go onto the Australian Bureau of Statistics website. There's a number of different reports that you can go and have a look at. 13042 would be a good place to start. I would also look at the first lecture that we did online. There's a little bit of information there. You can also look at 8777, which will give you a little bit more information on the construction industry. Alright, so the ABS is going to be your friend for question number 1. Alright, so don't go and try and find or get data from somewhere. If you are trying to get data, you're going in too deep. So once again, just use what is available already and interpret that. Alright, so I like pictures and I like graphs and I like tables, so make sure that you have those in your assessment item and then interpret them. If you have a graph, just say this is figure 1, then have a small little paragraph either directly in front or directly behind it and say this is what happens in figure 1, and this is my interpretation, and this is why I think this is happening. And the same with a table. Alright, so that's important. Alright, so the next section that I want there is of course the opinions and recommendations. And the opinions and recommendations obviously is based on your interpretation of the figures, and you can make recommendations about where you think the industry should be going, where the government should be going, and then you can start bringing in we've got the federal government, we've got the state government, we've got the local government, and don't spend too much time on that, but have it in there so that it's in there for completeness. Alright, so any questions on question number 1, assignment 2? Alright, so let's move on to question number 2, which is really easy. I said previously we've sort of covered the first part of that question in one of the online lectures. So if you want to go and have a look at those, I think it's called workforce management. And what we've done there is, firstly, the first thing that you're going to do during the introduction is once again define the terms. All right, so you're going to find definitions for de jure and for de facto, and you're going to say these are the definitions for that. All right, so always try and do that in the questions. Define the terms first, and then move on and saying what about theory X, Y, and Z, and find nice definitions for those. Once again, Google Scholar is really a good source of information there, and also go and have a look at that video. The second part of the question then says prepare a detailed report and discuss the important considerations. Alright, so you might be in a brand new organization, and you're going to have a startup, or alternatively you are part of a multidisciplinary project management team that's going to start running a big project, and you have to come up with a way of dealing with authority, dealing with the management styles and leaderships. How are you going to communicate? How are you going to manage the teams? How are you going to manage the change management issues that's always associated with big projects and execution, and then come up with your report on that. Alright, so once again, diagrams. So typically I would think about communications. You would find diagrams showing, for instance, the sender and the modulator and the receiver, and see how those fit together. Do a nice little diagram of each of those, and or alternatively, what would also work nicely for communications is if you have a look at the communication lines in an organizational structure. Who is allowed to talk to who, and if it's contractors that's part of the game, how do we communicate with contractors from a contractual point of view as well. Alright, so there we go. That's assessment item number 2. A few hints for you. And do you guys have any questions on assessment item number 2?
Yeah, not really, Joshua. An extra week would be nice, mate, if you could spare it.
Well, Ryan, the reason I think I mentioned before, the reason for the tight deadline is I want to see if I can get the stuff out to you by Friday. I fly out on Friday, so I'm going to try and get it finished and over and done with, so that you have enough time to focus on assignment number 3. So sorry for the short time there.
No worries. All but there. Not
all right. Okay. All right. So there we go. Any other questions?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it.
All right. So for next week, if you guys have anything that you need to cover, let's say you've gone through the requirements for assignment number 3, maybe put a few posts onto the forum so that we can discuss it. Next week will be our last session before January, so it would be a good idea if you guys want to maybe add a few questions on what needs to be covered. You'll also see that I've updated the website. So I've moved the online video tab to the top, and I've given you some more information there. So go and have a look at it, and yeah, some feedback anytime. Alright, so if you guys don't have any more questions, what I might do is just call it a night, and see you guys next week.
Thanks, Joshua.
Hold on a
No,
sec.
thank you very much.
George, before you guys go, George, you've got a question.
Yeah, hi Joshua, hi everyone. It's just about the workbook activities. Just curious to know how everyone's going with them. I know it's not about assignment 2. I'm finding it harder than what I thought it may be, getting anybody, like people who have the time to sort of just hang about for a few minutes and do the thing.
To be honest, I haven't really looked at it, sorry.
No, I haven't even opened it up.
Well, if you guys want,
okay.
yeah, we can have a quick look at it if you have 2 seconds. Let's see if we can find it. And Alright, so you should be able to see the workbook now. Can somebody just confirm that you can see it?
I can't see it, sorry.
Alright, so let's see if we can share the desktop. Alright, how about now?
That's better.
Alright, so
Yep.
Alright, so there's our workbook for building sector management, and it's true what George has said, and it's a a lot more difficult than what you might think to find somebody to just quickly have a chat with. Alright, so the problem is it's a bad time of year as well, George, and I think you will be able to second that. Everybody is rushing around trying to finish the projects off for the last few weeks of the year, and nothing else is going to happen before we start up again, say the third week in January next year, and then almost the workbook is due. So I think what
Yes,
you
I guess the most, just one quick thing that I was curious about, are you probably looking for a dialogue format on all of these sort of responses, Joshua?
yes, I think if you well, a dialogue type transcript. I'm not, in this case, the workbook, you don't need to be report orientated for that. You can basically look at the question that I've asked there and say, well, I had an interview with this person, and this is his opinion on the importance and the structure of, for instance, the industry groups. So a little bit more loose in design. Still maintaining the professional look, but a little bit more loose in design. So yeah, if you do have an interview, take what you hear from the person that you are interviewing and sort of interpret and convert that to something that makes sense.
All right, we'll have to work it out then.
All right. So yeah, there's only 6 activities. What would be great is if you could start earlier rather than later, because as I say, these things tend to sort of catch up with you. Yeah, so there's the advice that I can give. If you really struggle, let me know, George, and we'll see what we can do about getting somebody to interview or something like that. All right.
Okay, thanks, Joshua.
All right, cool.
Can a group of us interview the same person?
Yes, you can. Just to be careful of preparing exactly the same reports. Remember, we don't want what we had previously. So if you do interview, that's fine, but your interpretation should be different. I don't want a situation where I've got 3 students that's got exactly the same workbook, because that, if you fail, what's important about this one is if you fail the workbook, no matter what mark you achieve during the year, you will fail. The other bad thing about the workbook is if you don't submit a satisfactory workbook, let's say your result up to that point was 80%, and you get a supplementary assessment, it means that you lose the 80% and you will only get a supplementary pass. Alright, and that's going to adversely affect your GPA. That's something that you don't want. So if you do work in groups, just make sure that you keep it nice above board. Don't share notes. Alright, definitely don't share notes, and make sure that you elaborate on the interview. Make sure that you interpret in your own words and keep it separate from your friends. There should be, what I'm trying to say is, it should be really difficult for me to find any similarities between the interviews. Does that make some sense, Tim?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, so there we go. Any other questions from you guys?
That's pretty good, Josh. The only thing that probably just picked up is I may be going a bit too deep in the statistical information for the first part. It's pretty easy to get swept away with all the statistics and graphs and bits and pieces, but just trying to pinpoint your specific trends, it can be pretty subjective at times. Pointing at actual growth in percentage or employment or value over a certain year has got a lot of contributing factors, but not sure if you want us to actually go into depth of what those factors could be, or more of the fact just analyse that there has been a change over the period.
Well, definitely if you can identify, something that immediately springs to mind is the global financial crisis, and so in 2007, 2008, you should be able to see that and pick it up from the statistics. You'll need to investigate those types of occurrences. I don't want you to go and try and figure out the the third decimal on the statistics, but definitely, find the statistics, analyze it, and interpret it and say, well, over here there's a fall off in the market, there's a slump in the number of approvals that we've got through our local council or statewide, and these might be reasons for it. For instance, there might have been a flood or a tornado or something like that. The beginning of this year there was these tremendous floods in Queensland, so there might be more construction work because of that. So try and find the fringe items that's influencing the statistics.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, that's more than what you bargained for, eh?
Yeah, no, it's all pretty much there. It's just sometimes you get caught up with it, that's all.
All right. Alrighty. Any other questions? Alright, so thanks you guys, and then remember to put some topics that you want to discuss next week, and I'll see you next Thursday.
See you next week, everyone.
Thanks, Josh.
Right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Josh.
man. See you later. Bye.